She showed up at the mansion with nothing but determination and a job offer. Dressed in a clean but simple uniform, Maria was just looking to earn a living, maybe help support her mother, maybe one day her little place of her own. But before she even stepped through the front door, she was stopped. A voice, cold and dismissive, told her she was at the wrong entrance. "Service staff goes around back," the woman said, without even looking up from her phone. That moment stung. Not because Maria hadn't heard that kind of tone before, but because deep down she believed she was meant for more. Maria didn't argue. She walked to the back, got to work, and stayed silent. But from that day on, something shifted. She studied every detail of that house, not just how to clean it, but how it was built, how it was managed, and who owned it. Every night she went home, she wrote down ideas, watched online courses, saved every dollar she could. What started as humiliation turned into fuel. Years passed, and while no one noticed, Maria was building something big. The kind of empire that didn't require an invitation to anyone's front door. But the real twist, that same mansion, the one where she was once told to use the service entrance, was about to go on the market. And Maria, she had a plan no one saw coming. What happened next? Well, let's just say the tables turned in a way no one expected. Maria had grown up watching her mother scrub floors in houses she could never afford to live in. Every paycheck barely covered rent, and weekends were for bargain hunting and second-hand shoes. But what they lacked in wealth, they made up for in grit. Her mother always said, "If you can't walk through the front door, build your own." Maria took that to heart. When she got the job at the mansion, she didn't just clean. It was like stepping into another world. Crystal chandeliers, Italian marble, imported art, things she'd only seen in magazines. She watched the guests, the owners, their routines. She listened and she learned. There was something about how casually money moved in that house, how decisions were made over wine and whispered conversations. It was a world where people didn't ask for permission. They took up space. Outside of work, Maria became a different person. She studied real estate at night, learned how to invest, took online business classes, even started a side hustle reselling vintage furniture she found at estate sales. Every dollar went back into her dream. But she never told anyone. Not her co-workers, not even her closest friends. The quiet drive that pushed her didn't come from a need to prove people wrong. It came from knowing deep down she was capable of more. And then one day she'd overheard something. The mansion, the same one that once treated her like she didn't belong, was about to be listed for sale. That's when everything changed. Maria acted like she didn't hear the conversation that day in the hallway, but every word stayed with her. The owner was in debt, something about unpaid taxes, a divorce settlement, and a deal that fell through. The mansion was too much to maintain. It would quietly hit the market, off record at first, in hopes of a fast private sale. Maria didn't have the kind of money buyers for that house usually did, but she had something else: timing, knowledge, and a network she'd quietly built over the years. Behind the scenes, she reached out to one of her clients from her furniture business, a real estate investor who had once called her the sharpest negotiator he'd met in years. They had stayed in touch, casually, but now she made him an offer. She'd bring him a deal, off-market, high value, but she wanted to be part owner. At first, he laughed. Then he paused. Then he listened. Meanwhile, in the mansion, things were tense. Staff whispered in corners. The owner's mood grew unpredictable. Her once friendly tone had turned sharp, especially with Maria, as if she could sense something shifting but couldn't quite place it. Maria kept her head down, but her eyes were everywhere. The woman who once told her to use the service entrance now paced the same marble halls in slippers, arguing with her lawyer on the phone. Maria knew she had to move fast. If the listing went public, she'd be priced out. But buying the mansion wouldn't just be a business move, it would mean walking through the front door on her own terms. The offer was ready. Maria and the investor had spent nights finalizing it, tight numbers, a fast close, and just enough incentive to make the seller feel like she was walking away with a win. But Maria knew the truth. This was a lifeline disguised as a deal. Still, nothing was guaranteed. One wrong move, one slip of the tongue, and everything she had worked for could fall apart. She was still the housekeeper in the owner's eyes, someone meant to stay invisible, someone who wasn't supposed to know what equity, escrow, or leverage even meant. The investor's legal team submitted the offer quietly through a private channel. Now, all Maria could do was wait. Each day at the mansion felt heavier. The owner walked the halls like a storm brewing, snapping at everyone, checking the phone every few minutes. Something was happening. Rumors of another buyer circling, a potential bidding war. Maria's investor warned her. If the price jumped, he was out. "We go in clean, fast, or not at all," he said. Maria felt the pressure like a weight on her chest. She kept working, vacuumed the same hallways, polished the same fixtures. But her hands trembled now, just slightly. Every time the doorbell rang, her heart jumped. Was it a real estate agent? A rival offer? Time was running out, and Maria knew it. The woman who once dismissed her was about to face her biggest surprise. But first, Maria had to survive the final stretch, one move away from changing everything. Just when Maria thought things couldn't get more intense, a new name entered the conversation: Michael Trent. He was a developer with deep pockets and a reputation for snatching up distressed luxury properties, only to tear them down and flip them for double. Word spread quickly among the mansion staff. Michael had told the property in secret 2 days ago. His offer was rumored to be all cash, above asking, and ready to close immediately. Maria's stomach dropped. If that was true, her plan could be over before it even began. She didn't show it, but inside, panic was rising. Her investor was already stretching the budget, and there was no way they could match that kind of money. Worse, the seller, who still didn't know Maria had anything to do with the first offer, had started to smile again. The same woman who once told her to stay in the back now walked around like she held all the power once more. Maria stayed calm on the surface, but her mind raced. There had to be something they were missing, something Trent didn't see, and then it hit her. A flaw in the zoning paperwork she'd come across months ago while cleaning the home office. She remembered the file exactly: old permits, unused square footage, potential for a legal complication. Maria didn't know if it was enough, but it was her one shot to stop the sale. The clock was ticking. One wrong step and the mansion, her dream, would slip away forever. Maria didn't waste time. That night, after everyone had left and the mansion was quiet, she dug through the office storage. The folder was still there, buried beneath stacks of ignored paperwork. Just as she remembered, an outdated permit, zoning restrictions that limited structural changes on the property. It was minor, easy to overlook, but enough to stall a large-scale redevelopment like the one Trent was known for. She scanned the documents and sent them straight to her investor. The next morning, they revised their offer with one key addition: a gentle reminder of the property's current zoning limitations. It worked. Trent backed out within 48 hours. Rumors swirled that his legal team flagged the issue and deemed the project too risky. The seller, frustrated and desperate to close, revisited Maria's offer. She never found out Maria was behind it, just that it came from a quiet but serious buyer who wanted the property as is. A week later, the papers were signed. The mansion had a new owner. Maria stood on the front steps the day the keys were handed over, dressed in her usual jeans and a soft smile. She didn't need to make a scene. She had already won. The woman who once dismissed her didn't show up to the closing, not even a goodbye. But just when it all seemed finished, a neighbor passed by and asked Maria if the rumors were true, that she wasn't just buying this house, but the entire block. Maria simply smiled again. "We'll see," she said. A few months later, the mansion looked different, but not because it had been torn down or remodeled. It had been cared for. The garden, once overgrown and forgotten, now bloomed with fresh life. The furniture was updated, but nothing flashy. Maria had chosen every piece with meaning. She wanted the home to feel warm, lived in, not like the cold museum it had been before. For her, it wasn't about showing off. It was about taking back space with quiet pride. She invited her mother over for dinner one Sunday evening. As they stood in the same grand foyer where Maria was once turned away, her mother paused, her eyes misty. "You built this," she whispered. Maria just nodded. She didn't need to explain how many sacrifices it took, how many nights she went without sleep, how many times she almost gave up. It was all worth it. The investor she partnered with stayed on board for other deals. What started as one risky offer turned into a partnership. Together, they began looking at other neglected properties in the neighborhood, places with history and potential. Maria wasn't just a homeowner now. She was becoming a voice in the real estate world, someone who understood both sides, hard work and high stakes. The story that began with a simple insult had ended with something far greater than revenge. It was about transformation, ownership, and never letting someone else decide your worth. Maria didn't just buy a mansion. She reclaimed her future, front door and all.